Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of Shakin Hands. I'm your host, Jack Moran. You can find me on Instagram at Blue Collar Kid. That is Blue Collar KEHD. Today on the podcast, we have Emmanuel Martinez-Lahut, the founder of Indy Media. What's going on?
Not much, man. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to have you. I always like to start off by saying, give a little background on what you do, what your business is, what you're currently doing.
Gotcha. So I would say I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I started in the electronic repair industry, which, involves cell phones, tablets, computers. Grew that into pretty much 3 locations. From there, I moved to Charlotte. Well, no. From there, I started a marketing company where I was running ads for local businesses in Forest City, which is like an hour away from here. Not too far. It's just nobody knows about it. After that, I pretty much moved to Charlotte, met Jorge, and then with Jorge, we were on Top Bay 90, the sports media company. And what we do is, we cover the Charlotte FC team, international teams that come here to the Bank of America. For example, we covered Copa America here when the fight broke out. We provided some of those viral videos. I mean, we're not proud of it, but so that's what we do. We get to interview players, talk to coaches, and meet a lot of really cool people in the process.
How did you transition to that from doing the electronic repairs?
So, I transitioned into marketing, and in marketing, I realized that I really enjoyed making content. Because marketing involves a lot of content creation, and a lot of people don't really see the value in it. They just make a graphic and they just boost it. But that's not really where the value is. People want to see something interesting, something cool, something funny, something educational. So when I was making this content, I realized that I want to get into just producing media or starting a YouTube channel or something. So I moved to Charlotte just because it was already part of me and my wife's plan to move into Charlotte. And then meeting Jorge, through the Instagram, because that's where you see all the Charlotte FC stuff. One day he just posted a story. He was like, "Does anybody know any business? He have any business background?" And I was just messing around. I was like, "Yo, what's up, bro?" We're yes. And he was like, "Okay, cool. Let's meet at the People's Market. That's his spot. That's where he meets everybody." And that's pretty much how it started. Just from there. My role was essentially the CEO of the company. Pretty much me and him kind of bounce ideas. We share ideas. I kind of have to be the bad person. When it comes down to let's say they want to do something, I'm like, no, that makes no sense for the business. Whatever. And then they're like, man.
So our audience doesn't know who Jorge is. Who's Jorge?
Jorge Gonzalez. He is the founder of Top Bay 90, and he is also a co-founder at Seventh Peak Marketing. If you're a local, you've probably seen his videos. He did go a little viral on TikTok, which is hilarious. Y'all should look at his TikTok one day. And he's a cool dude. He's the tallest Honduran I've ever met. Tallest, biggest. It's crazy. Yeah.
So what is the formula for producing good content that you found?
Formula. It just really depends on what you're doing, right? So when it comes to sports, like soccer specifically, people really want to see goals, and people want to really see the fights. They want to see the fans. So those 3 things. So if you can capture those 3 things in one video, it's always good. But soccer is very very specific. So those 3 things are very specific to it. But when it comes to other content, you just really want to have a nice hook. You want to be able to to capture your audience in the first 5 seconds, right? So what you do is you throw out what you're going to talk about, and it better be something interesting, because people are not online to be bored. They want to be entertained. That's why they're online. They want to watch something entertaining, something funny, or something that provides value with something educational.
And so that initial hook is really important. Is there a formula to that hook?
I've never put it down on paper, but it's just, I don't know, we just do it. I mean, I'll have to look back and analyze myself on that aspect because, it's a good thing you asked me that because now I can go back and be like, yo, what is the formula for this? Why is it working for us?
Yeah, so you told me before we got on the podcast that you had started these electronic companies when you were like 16 years old. Is that right?
Yes.
What was it like building a business at that age?
It wasn't that bad for me, fortunately, because my mother's always been she's also always been an entrepreneur. She was, her and my stepdad were general contractors. And from there, they got into the retail business. Pretty much, they opened up it was a store where they had Latino products, so like a typical Mexican store. And then, I mean, from there, she got into the restaurant business. And, I mean, just growing up, I would just be involved in all of these things. So I would watch, I would learn. And when the time came, essentially, the way I started was because I broke my phone and I had already maxed out my claims for the year. So I couldn't just get another phone. And she was like, well, I'm not buying you a phone. Like, figure it out. So I was like, well, I'll fix it. So I fixed it. And then a bunch of other friends were like, yo, can you fix my phone as well? I was like, okay, we can do that. So it got to the point where it was just taking away my weekends. So like, I need to start charging you guys for this because this is getting out of hand. So that's how it started. I went to my mom. I was like, Mom, can you help me? Like, I want to start a shop. Like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. And she was like, yes, we can do it. She was like, I know nothing about this industry, so let's research it. And that's how that started. I mean, fortunately, like within her space that she had her stores in, there was an empty spot where I could open up my shop, and that's how that started.
So what did you learn in those early stages of your entrepreneurial journey?
To not spend all the money that you need to put aside for taxes.
That's some great advice. Did you run into an issue with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was 17. Pretty much all the money that was coming in, I was spending it. I mean, I wasn't thinking about the IRS yet. You're 17.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happened. I mean, it's a good mistake to make when you're that young.
Right. Not a ton of consequences at 17.
Not a ton. I mean, gladly I had a mother that could help me out.
Yeah, right. And so you told me that you exited that business pretty early. What was that experience like?
So I exited because I pretty much went to school and it was just going to be too much to deal with. So I sold the business, and just moved. And then when I left college, I was like, well, because I dropped out of college. I dropped out of college and people will see it. Some people will see it as a bad thing. I personally didn't find a joy in it because I went in wanting to be a dentist. And then I realized I was like, do I really want to be a dentist and be here for 8 years? And then I was like, I don't want to do that. So I dropped out while I was figuring out what I wanted to do. So I opened another store because I didn't really want to go and work for somebody. So I just opened another store since I had some funds. And that just kind of took off. But then when I went back to college again, I sold that as well. Because again, it's just too much. Retail business is a lot of like, you just got to be on top of everything. And if you're not, you're going to have a lot of losses. But what did I learn? I mean, the biggest take from it is I learned how to talk to all kinds of people because you're interacting with them. They're coming in, and you have some characters walking in telling you how their wife kind of like smashed their phone on the floor. How, just crazy stories, and that really helped me out. Like today, like if you see me in the street, like I'll talk to anybody. I mean, my father-in-law, like he said that I could talk to a wall. I'm like, great, this is great.
What do you think the key is to connecting with a wide range of people?
Just listening. I feel like listening is the best way you can connect with people. Because if you really want to connect with somebody, telling them all the things you're good at and all the things you have and don't have doesn't really help you get to know them, So like, I mean, obviously you have to share your part when the time comes, but like, when you're meeting people like, and you really want to have a connection with them, you just really got to listen. That's what I've found in my personal, experience.
And so you also told me that after like running some of these businesses, you started kind of investing in them, and being like, kind of on the outside, for not as much as an operational standpoint, but maybe more strategic. What was that kind of process like?
So I had some friends that I met playing soccer in Raleigh, and essentially they were also in the business realm, and they put in conversation they just realized how profitable it was, because I mean a service is very subjectable. Like you pick the price that you're selling your service at compared to a product. So like yes, there's like an overhead of like what you're spending on like parts and stuff, but the service that you're providing, you can price it at whatever you want. And like for example, like we've had a lot of people that like would come in with a broken phone, and they just really wanted the information in it, like pictures from deceased relatives, all that kind of stuff. There's really not a price for that. And I'm not saying that like we would take advantage of that situation. It's more like, okay, well there's this demand. How can we price it accordingly so that we make a good chunk of profit and they leave a happy customer? Because we also don't want to like scare them away for the future. We want to make sure they come back. So in conversation, they just realized it was profitable, and they were like, yo, can you help us start this? What do we need? And I just told them how to do it. And I was like, well, can I invest in this, since I'm pretty much giving you the entire blueprint? And they were like, yeah. So that's how that started. And they don't even manage their own stores now.
How is that different, being the investor, from running the business?
It was pretty good because I know I could trust my friends. It's people. I mean, you never want to get into business with people you don't trust, obviously. But for me, it was really easy. I mean, I would just every 3 months I get my cut from it. Essentially, they get their cut, and it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple process because it's not like we're dealing with 20 different stores. We're just dealing with 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, profit goes in. Gross goes in, the net, and then we split the net profits.
How do you delegate and manage employees? Is there a strategy that?
In that industry particularly, you really can't, unless you really find somebody who's really good at sales, a great technician, and a great marketer. So you need those 3 to be able to delegate that kind of work. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get out. It was really hard to find people to fill in the spots. So I would find myself at the store. Instead of being able to employ people, I would just find myself at the store every time something would happen. I'm just like, I need some free time. I was there because I mean, in the starting phase, you're there 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And I couldn't do it anymore.
And so you talked to me a little bit before this about this new venture that you're pursuing with creatives, people with creative services, and basically I'll let you explain it, like the brokerage model.
Yeah, so I mean, being at Top 90 just opened my eyes to the amount of talent that there is just in the city, right? And if there's that amount of talent in this city, I mean, there's more out there. So what I did is me and my buddy Francisco, who also works with us at Top 90, he does all the photography and all the video work. He oversees the group of photographers and videographers that we have. And me and him pretty much had this idea like, well, how can we provide a platform? How can we provide value to these other photographers that don't always get to come to the games? So essentially we came to the conclusion like that we could create this agency where essentially they would be able to like showcase their talent. They would be able to showcase their portfolios instead of having to, yes, they can have their own individual portfolios, but okay. So they would showcase their portfolio on our website, and we will be in charge of getting them business. And from there, obviously, to run the operation, we would get a small cut of it. But the main thing that we want to focus on is we want to be able to create our own content for whatever we do. So, like for example, for Top 90, so we know we have a pool of talent we can pull from, and they're usually pretty available. And that's why we wanted to start this.
Yeah, I think it's a really good model, and especially for someone that wants to leap into entrepreneurship, I think this type of model is a good business to start. You found a demographic of people, we talked about this before, creatives, not necessarily the most sales heavy demographic of people. So to be able to bring them that deal flow is super valuable for them, so they can do what they're good at, which is being creative. And I think that's, you guys have recognized a good need in that. But for any entrepreneur or someone trying to start a business, that model is super powerful. If you can get good at sales and sourcing deals for whatever that niche industry is, that's the most difficult thing for a lot of people, is sourcing deals. And so if you can source those deals and provide them to people, it's very powerful, very valuable, but also you have a lot of leverage because you're controlling, have the face-to-face with the client. So it's a safe business.
It's pretty safe.
And there's not a lot of capital required to do it.
No, not initially, just kind of like, website, all that kind of stuff, LLC, all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, essentially want to be able to take the work that they're not great at, which is, sales, and let them focus on what they're good at.
Yeah. And so you said also that, you at some point were doing some marketing and running ads. What kind of ads were you doing? Just like paid ads?
Gotcha. So, I mean, I still do that till this day. Essentially, there's people that really they're not, this is mostly restaurants or like mechanic shops that don't have the time to do their own digital marketing. So I would just pretty much go in there and tell them like, hey, this is what I can do. This is how much it will cost. This is pretty much the goal. If we don't reach that goal, we can reevaluate my services. And essentially, a lot of people, after they see the value in it, they just continue to, have me on retainer and continue to do their digital marketing in running ads on Google and Facebook. Those have been like the places where I've been mostly focused on.
Like using Meta?
Yes, Meta.
What do you think the key is to a good digital strategy?
Just really knowing your audience. I mean, when I sit down with a customer, a client, I really ask them, one of the things I'm focusing on is like, who do you usually see in here? Was the customer that you aspire to have? And based on those two answers, I can usually create a profile for this individual. I mean, obviously age goes into it, there's some of them, even really just background, is considered. You just really got to know your customer. And some of these business owners, they don't always know their customer. So you have to sit down with them and just really like
define.
Yeah, to make them realize who their customer is as well.
Why did you pick this journey, plummet into the journey of entrepreneurship as opposed to the 9-to-5 lifestyle?
It just happened, to be honest. It was an accident. I mean, like I said, I wanted to go to school to be a dentist, but after I realized that like at the age of 16, I was already running a successful business. I just realized that I was like, there's no way that like at 16 years old you can be making money like that, and then everybody tells you have to go to school to make the same amount of money as a dentist. So that's kind of what made me realize that I didn't really want to be a dentist. Essentially, the idea that I came on was like, why do I want to be the dentist when I can just go and get my master's in business and get the licensing required to open a clinic and hire a dentist? So that was kind of like the mentality that just made me continue pursuing entrepreneurship.
What would you say is one thing that you wish you knew when you were 16 that you know now?
Don't get into the repair industry. It's just very time consuming. I mean, I have a location in Forest City, and
I'm sure you learned a lot from it, though.
Yes, I've learned so much from it. I mean, I'm passionate about it because, at this point, the third-party repair industry is fighting with Apple to be able to repair our devices, your devices. And it's something that it just feels good to be able to know that you're doing something that brings value to someone else's life, Because, our prices are reasonable for us to stay afloat, but we're also providing value. Like, everybody just leaves happy. Everybody, they don't feel ripped off when they leave our store compared to when they go to competitors, right? And for us, that's a good feeling, right? But it's just very time consuming. If you really want to have the freedom that you want to have, just get a job. 9 to 5 is cool, and then you have
don't do that.
Yeah, That one in particular is very time consuming. It's almost like a restaurant.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
What are you chasing after? How do you define success for yourself?
For me, for myself, success is more of being able to spend my time where I want to spend it, with who I want to spend it, and not having to worry about my business, right? Just because sometimes I will go on vacation and I will still be getting phone calls, and I'm just not really on vacation anymore. I'm still working. So success for me is just when I can do that, because that means that I've done everything right. I've hired the right people. I've delegated, all the other small roles that need to be, passed around. And to me, that's kind of that's what success looks like for me, right? Being able to live your life with no worries on like your job or like anything else around you.
That's good advice. Just as like a final like wrap up, what advice would you give to someone that is maybe on the fence, deciding if they want to become entrepreneurs or maybe just started on the entrepreneurial journey? Yeah, what advice would you give them other than don't get into the electronic business?
If you really want to do it, I would say go and shadow somebody. Most people, most business owners, they're pretty chill. Just I mean, whatever it is, coffee shop, a clothing company, whatever it is, just
find a mentor.
Just find a mentor, and just kind of have them allow you follow them around for like a week, and that will pretty much tell you the kind of lifestyle that they're living. And if that's the lifestyle that you want, then great, go for it. I mean, don't be scared to do it. You just find out if that's what you want to do long run.
Right.
Yeah.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out, or if they're interested in your services? Where can they hit you up?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty active on Instagram. That's the place where I'm the most active. It's JEML_, and there you will also find the links to our websites for Indy Media, and my LinkedIn as well. So that's the place to find me.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you coming out. It's been pretty insightful.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, that concludes this episode of Shakin' Hands. I'm your host, Jack Moran. You can find me on Instagram at Blue Collar Kid. That is Blue Collar KEHD. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, please tune in next time for some more interesting guests and conversations. See you later.
Yeah.